In this episode, we talk about the good kind of sadness and how to craft it.
And in the prompt for today, 2 wedding planners try to keep it all together and fix what has been broken.
All this and more on today's episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong.
Stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening. Welcome to Your Rivers Are Wrong. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Merle.
And I'm the other host, and my name is Dante.
And in this podcast, you know it, you love it, we talk about the wonderful whimsies of world building, the arts and aesthetics of setting up a setting, and telling stories born from it. We're on episode, let me make sure I get this right, 86 today.
86.
Which is pretty big number. I can't believe we've done this for 86 years. 86 years?
I feel like
no, wait. 86 times.
It has been 86 years.
Has it?
It's crazy. Yeah. We're
wow. Okay, we're
both
establishing that now.
Centennials.
Yeah. Yes.
Working on this podcast for truly a lifetime. What a gift. What an honor.
What a gift. What a gift it is, indeed.
Yeah. I think as we continue to approach 100, we start every episode stating how high the number is.
Yes. I feel like it's the sort of easy way into an episode. Maybe it's just the comfort
that's
topic.
true.
Is that a thing? I mean, after 86 episodes, I guess we have comfort topics now because there's just been so many of them.
There's things we always come back to. I think that's just tradition.
How is your week? How are you doing?
It's a little bit hectic because it's our birthday week.
Hey, celebrations.
Yeah. It's that special time of year when both of your hosts are celebrating their birthday in the same week.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, our yearly personal holiday days, also known as birthdays, are, what is it, like 6 days apart? Yeah.
6 days apart.
Yep.
Yeah. What's so interesting about this year is that a lot of people are asking me, hey, what are you doing for your birthday? You know, my family asked me, my friends asked me. And in my head, there's nothing I would enjoy more than just 24 hours of free time. And it's
oh God,
like no commitments, no special occasions. Like I just don't need any interruptions. Just give me 24 hours. And that's the best use of my time I can think of. Because I feel like over the course of the year, I've been working on a lot of projects. I've been working on a lot of things, like mostly creative passion projects.
Busy
and they're
person.
fun.
Yeah.
And it's just like every weekend is something happening. You just, that's just how my family works. It's just how like life works. There's always something to do.
Yeah.
And it's just like using today, which is a Friday, and Sunday, I've successfully pushed all of my chores and responsibilities and occasions and events to Friday and Sunday. So I have a clear 24-hour Saturday.
Birthday sandwich days going on. Like,
exactly. Like all the festivities, all the chores.
No, I like this.
It's all on Friday and Sunday. So Saturday is like this unusual anomaly in my life where nothing is happening. And I can't think of anything more enjoyable at the ripe age of 30 plus of just an empty day.
Yep. Will you see anyone? Will anyone be able to live celebrate you?
Oh, I mean, they can stop by and say hi. Yeah, I'm meeting up with my friends Friday, and I'm having a family thing. Like
fun.
All that's going on, and then Saturday's just blank slate.
Nice.
Like for somehow everything's canceled, and I just made sure like anything that could be on Saturday was just moved to the side.
Okay. Pretty good.
So that's how I'm going to celebrate my birthday. I know there's other exciting things I could do, but I kind of just don't want to. So
I mean, if there's too much excitement, the rarity of not having excitement, I guess, is the greater one of the two.
That's true. It's more rare to not do something, which is something to experience. Not what I expected where I'm at.
Maybe it's also a side to like chill a bit more in general. Just putting it out there, But I feel like we have this discussion more often. So
yeah. How about you?
Yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise.
Your birthday's coming, 7 days.
Yeah, it's going to be soon as well. I think in that way similar to you, where whenever someone asks, what are you going to do for your birthday? Or what do you even want? Like, what kind of, do you have like a list of stuff that you want to get? And I'm like, what do you mean birthday? Oh yeah, that is in 2 weeks. Yeah, okay, wait, hold on. Like, I'm the worst birthday planner ever, let alone the fact that I often like don't realize that it is happening soon. So instead, for this year, I was like, okay, I got to do something and it's got to be fun. And I want to hang out and see with people or see people. But I also don't have a specific plan. So the current state of the festivities is that, in fact, on your actual birthday, which is tomorrow, I will have my early birthday dinner with the fam. So that's good. So we're going to be like fancy, like doing some restaurant shit. It's going to be very nice. And also because my parents are divorced, happily divorced, we don't have a lot of like, like hang out with everyone time usually, right? Like it's either I'm going to visit my dad or I'm going to visit my mom or I'm hanging out with my brother or like the combination between the two. But it's never like the full sort of old school family setup. And we all felt like it would be nice to do it every once in a while. So this is a good occasion to do it. And I'm very excited about it.
That's good.
Because it's going to...
It's very good.
I think it's going to bring the good nostalgia, you know? So that's going to be very nice. And also, I think it's going to be like a little bit of a fancy restaurant, which is nice. Because I love occasions when it's like kind of like you feel like you need to dress up a little bit to make it like fancy, you know? I love that sort of stuff. So I feel like that's a very good birthday, a way to spend my birthday dinner plans. And then for next week, I have no idea yet. Like I wanted to do something chill, but also I was busy and chaotic. So maybe I will think of something nice soon. And otherwise, I'm just going to hang out with the people that are around and that's going to be it. And that's going to be fun as well. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah.
How exciting.
Yeah. So I'm celebrating your birthday more than my birthday, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah.
Send me
I will
me
also
food
toast
pics
on
so
you.
I
How
can,
about that? Yeah.
Thank you. Send me food pics so I can like vicariously be there while I'm like being a hermit.
That makes sense.
Cool.
I will celebrate for you. How about that? Yeah.
Take my festivities and I'll push them to Holland.
I'll gladly take them. I love festivities. Yep. Sounds about good.
All right. Well,
anyway. What are we doing today?
Yeah, we're not here to talk about our birthdays. We're here. What are we here to talk about now?
It is fun, but we shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't be a constant. Instead, what we do here, let's remind ourselves a little bit. We talk about world building. We talk about storytelling. We talk about gaming. We talk about all things narratively interesting.
That was great.
Yeah, I finished that off real well. Yeah, sometimes I don't. Today I did. And in fact, every episode, one of us is hosting, in this case me, as you might have realized by now. And the person hosting will bring the topic that we're going to discuss, that we're going to talk about, fidget around with, and have a little prompt related to it probably at the end of it that the, I guess, non-hosting person is
non-host. It's me, the non-host.
The non-host, yeah. The other person in the room.
There's a better name for that. We'll workshop it.
I'm like, yeah, I was thinking and it failed me. Anyway, so today I will bring the topic for you. Are you ready?
I sure am.
Okay. The way I wrote this down, so this is kind of a...
What a start.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a very satisfying word, right? Today, it's not. I wrote this down as follows. The good kind of sad.
The good kind of sad.
By which I mean, I've had several thoughts this week. How great of me. That are kind of all related to this. But they're kind of in different realms of it, so I don't really know how to summarize except for this feeling of doing sadness well, you know, like getting to the sadness in the most satisfying either narrative or character-based way, because I think it's not that easy.
Sure.
We've talked a little bit about how I love drama stuff, how people can have kind of preferences for either comedy or tragedy, you know, it's kind of like you're always kind of leaning to something. And I feel like we've had episodes before where we're like talking about the effects of comedy and the differences between, do you call it genre? I'm not sure, like flavor, I guess.
Yes.
So I would love to dive in with you a little bit today and dissect what makes a proper satisfying sad tale.
Interesting. Yeah.
If that makes sense. That's the intro I got.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want me to just give you my initial thoughts on that, or?
Sure, yeah.
So actually yesterday
I was sad. No, sorry.
I guess that's where I was leading, wasn't it? I'm sorry, I set that up a little too well.
Yep, you did.
So I was explaining to my sister what we did in London, because she's trying to visit Europe either this year or next year.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to the topic of theater, and famously what we both watched was A Little Life.
A very sad tale indeed.
Yeah, in Broadway in West End.
Yeah.
And I remember telling her very plainly, I'm like, watching that was the saddest thing I've ever experienced.
Oh,
and I would have been devastated if the performance wasn't so incredible. Right? Like it's
yeah, right.
The story is deeply depressing. It's very sad.
Yes.
It's like a tragedy of tragedies.
All the triggers, yep.
And when after we finished watching it, I was like, did I enjoy that? In my head, I'm like,
yeah, I remember
was that an enjoyable experience? And ultimately, yes, because the artistry and the acting and the way the story kind of culminated into itself and truly it kind of resolved itself, I would say very cleanly, all things said.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It was deeply satisfying, and that overwhelmed the depressive state it left me in. So like, yeah,
that's a good summary. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it and would recommend it. Personally, would not watch it twice.
Yes.
I don't need that heaviness on my heart.
Yeah. I understand all of this. Yeah, it makes total sense.
But yeah, so why would people watch something like that? Why would people watch a 3.5 hour theater play about deep and depressing sadness?
Yes.
What are we looking for? You know, at a very, very basic level, for something like that, we're looking for a good story. We're looking for a good setup. We're looking for a good premise. We're looking for action, climax, and satisfying resolution.
Yeah.
It's why like the two sides of Greek theater were comedy and tragedy. They're both very satisfying experiences for very, very different reasons. We actually had a whole episode on that, comedy and tragedy.
It's true.
But just to start off the conversation, for me, it's satisfaction and catharsis. It's watching and experiencing a deeply understandable, logical, and relatable story, and watching the culmination of that story to its conclusion to be deeply satisfying, motivating, and in some points relatable. You know, sadness is a real thing that we all experience. If it wasn't a relatable story, if it wasn't reasonable or logical, then I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. So we could just start there. Just the calling of the expectations of a good story.
Yeah, because I also listed down A Little Life because it's famously sad, I think. So the fact that you instantly went there makes total sense to me. Also, for like a tiny bit of context, this is based on a book, right? And the book is already very, I mean, it's equally sad. I love this book and I hate this book. And I was like, should I bring you to this play that will totally wreck us? I'm already sure of it. If it's any good, it's gonna for sure. If it's a good adaptation, it will have the same confusing effect on people, the audience of it. So for that reason, yes, makes total sense. And interestingly, the book is pretty famous in itself, and it's a big bestseller. Like there's a lot of people that have been reading it, but also a lot of people really disliking it. Like on the internet, there's a big divide kind of. There's no really mellow people about this book. Like there's no people that just don't really care. It's either someone is like,
right.
This is way there's never like, it's fine. Yeah. It's either people can't deal with it or are just super upset about going into a world like that, or frustrated about the intensity of the depression that's in there. You know, like it keeps building and building. There's just very little light in this story, like pinpricks, you know, compared to the sort of heaviness of it. And that also made me think about actually what you were describing just now, like how necessary is it for something to be like a proper round off, or to have like that balance there to be able to be good sadness? Like, can overwhelming sadness, such as in A Little Life, can it still be good or okay to watch? Like, where's that line, you know? Because we're in almost all of our episodes, and in general, it's kind of known, like, if you want to have a proper story, the balance of optimism and heartbreak and tragedy and complexities has to be there. Like, it has to be all in equal parts kind of with each other to be able to bring sort of a full picture.
Right, yes.
But it's not always, like, somehow in this tale, it still doesn't work like that, but then we still had a satisfying experience, you know? Is it because the storytelling in itself, like the arc of it is the satisfying bit, or is it the way the sadness is used to fuel like realistic character portrayals or something? Like, where does that lie, right? That's an interesting question to me, and I don't know if I know the answer. Maybe
I guess there's a couple schools of thought on that, and the first one, like, very plainly, is people just want to feel. Right. The
that's well put. Yeah.
Art in theater and movies and books, people want to be roused to emotion. People want to experience almost an almost an unordinary amount of emotion when they watch these things. They want
like
to be
the
riled.
intensity of it.
Yeah, the intensity is the word I'm looking for. So like riled to excitement or horror and fear, things like that. Like people go like I don't watch a movie to be whelmed, you know? I want to be overwhelmed, you know? I want to feel something, right?
Nice.
And A Little Life is a masterclass in overwhelming people with the direction of sadness. It's just like how do you hit all of these things that are just deeply, deeply melancholy and just keep hammering it on, right?
Yeah.
And at any point in that play, I could have thought to myself, hey, this is unrealistic, and then tapped myself out of it, like emotionally.
Yeah, you check
exited.
out kind of. Yeah.
Checked out. Yeah, that's the word. But there was no point. Multiple times throughout that thing, I'm like, oh, that's real. Like that's a real thing that real
like
people experience
over and over. Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm very grateful I'm not experiencing that, but I know that that's a reality for many people. And that kept me grounded in the story. I think sadness done well is sadness that is honest and people can relate to it. Like, yes, if this happened to me, it would make me sad. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's not just like the universe hates you, unlucky sadness. Like there's certain points in times when I cannot take a movie seriously and the sadness seriously because the characters, one, don't react the way I would expect human beings to react, or two, are thrown into such a ridiculously unlikely scenario that I could never, ever relate. Like I can.
Yeah, it's too
There's
abstract.
no point in a little like, yeah, it's abstract. Perfect. You're really filling in the words that I'm looking for. And I really appreciate it. Every time I'm thinking of a word, you're just chucking the exact word. I'm like, when it's too abstract, like I can't process how I would feel in that situation. Like A Little Life truly just kept us anchored the entire way through and kept giving us details of this character that when put into context of the future things he would experience made sense. Like the way he reacted made sense. It was all very realistic. Kept me grounded. It's the same thing in like anger, I guess. When you see anger in movies, you are riled to that same anger and you want to feel that same anger when things happen, as long as the situation is realistic and logical and relatable. I think that's the key word here, relatable.
It's interesting because even if it's, I guess, relatable, can kind of go both ways, right? Like, for example, if we're talking about anger, right? I'm never an angry person in my life, ever. Like, I'm very bad at the emotion anger, I think. But then still, if in a story there's a lot of anger and it's done well, like I can sort of follow the steps of how a person gets to a rage like that or something, you know? That's also relatability in the way of like, if it feels, I guess, like a logical or like a realistic progression, then it still makes sense to follow into that emotion or something.
Right.
I mean, maybe it counts for every emotion. But I was also thinking as you were talking, I'm curious if it is different for instance, comedy or like lighthearted stories, if the abstraction is more permitted to storytelling in lighter versions, because I feel like comedy very often goes to like a ridiculous extreme, for instance, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas sadness, if you pull it into a ridiculous extreme, it often loses sort of the quality of realism.
Right.
Which is, it's funny how that works, because then for comedy, it's beneficial because it will kind of make it go crazy and spiral out of control, which is very often a very funny thing. But for sadness, extreme sadness is quite rare in terms of like the sad stories that kind of hit me are very often not extreme. I think A Little Life is kind of an exception to it, but usually also if you talk about acting, right? Or if you talk about writing in general, crafting the good kind of sad for me feels very often about like leaving things out or like being devoid of emotion, like having suddenly a lack of emotion there. And I think I've discussed it with an actor friend of me as well when we were doing one of the, like a previous theater show. And there's one moment in the previous show that we did, which was my solo song, which was because of this an interesting thing that made me think about this. It's a show called A New Brain, and it's kind of a wacky show. Like most of it is very abstract and kind of ridiculous, like fever dream-esque. There's a lot of like strange, like
surreal
characters.
type.
Yeah, it's very surreal. And then one of few moments that is not is the solo song of the mother character that I was playing, where she's kind of reminiscing. It's still surreal because it's still not entirely real. It's kind of fever dreamy, but where she's reminiscing as if her son had died, because it's a story about someone possibly dying because of like surgery, illness basically. And that's one of the few songs that is very traditionally like a classic sort of ballad, and all the other stuff is very crazy. So compared to that, if you suddenly have a moment of, in for instance that show, a moment of very sort of stillness compared to the crazy extremes that are going on in all the other moments of the show, it hits harder because suddenly you're realizing that we're not just in this surreal world, but also the realism is present in this reality that this show takes place in. And I feel like that is a tool that very often makes it more sad if you do it well, of course. But I feel like if you know a character well, or you start to get to know someone in sort of their daily way of presenting, their daily, throughout the story, basically.
Right.
And if there's suddenly a moment where that shifts into either someone being very still, or someone being very standoffish, or someone totally not responding anymore, like if you can't connect to someone, it also, for me, is very often very realistic and sort of like, oh my God, what's going on? Are they okay? That kind of feeling. And I think that's interesting as well, because for me, it made me wonder if for comedy, maybe you need the surrealism, and for sadness, maybe you need the absolute sudden realisticness of it or something. You know what I mean? Like the minimalism kind of it.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think in terms of like the scale of absurdity, right? Like,
yeah,
comedy can go all the way, right? They can go pretty darn far.
Yeah, sure.
Like, it can really push the limits of like suspension of disbelief. Like, oh, that is crazy.
And it will actually help it, right? Like, it'll be more funny because of it. Yeah.
Like, the comedy really thrives in people taking ordinary situations and truly like blowing it up to these like comical proportions.
Sure, yeah.
Tragedy doesn't really have that kind of leeway. Like, I'm thinking of a scene where from the movie The Emperor's New Groove, where it's like
nice,
Cusco
cool. Okay.
is sorry, it's a huge segue.
No, I mean, great, keep going.
Where Cusco as a llama is like stranded in the middle of the forest. He's lost his friends, he's lost his throne, he's a llama, he's really sad, and then it just starts thunderstorming, like cherry on top, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's like a storm, and that's kind of like the absurdity of the tragedy, where it's just like, oh, it's also raining, Now
also the world hates me. Great.
Which lends itself to it is like a sobering moment, but there's also a layer of comedy there.
Yeah, sure.
Because you're kind of pushing the boundaries of like what people can consider sad. It's like it's like actually that's like too much.
Yeah.
And it's a very delicate balance of like you have to still keep it relatable to make sure that people are hitting that sadness beat. People talk about all the time about like absolute disaster moments in comedy, where everything goes wrong, and there's a point where it just becomes comical. It's just like, I can't actually treat this as a tragedy anymore.
No, it's true. Yeah.
Because, it's just funny. It's funny how ridiculous the situation is.
Yeah.
Right. And we've talked about the balance of comedy and tragedy and how they're two sides of the same coin, and flipping between them is a great way to keep people engaged in your story by pulling on different emotions and yanking them back and forward. So when you talk about like, I guess the good kind of sad, I think what we're getting to is that there's levers that have to be properly adjusted and weighed all throughout the story that kind of balance the relatability of it. I think the good kind of sad is actually fantastic for what's recently just become popular again, which is Pixar's Inside Out. They just released a sequel.
That's right.
And we remember from the first movie that the greatest way to experience joy is to counterbalance it with sadness and melancholy. Like, you can't just be happy all the time. There's something about sadness that leads to catharsis. There's something about sadness that pulls you back into this joy and elevates the feeling of joy, because there's a deep negative emotion attached to that. And the jump between negative to positive is more satisfying than a level positive. I don't want to say it's story, but it's story. Like, it's just how that works. Moving emotions from place to place and pulling you from one emotion to the next is a fantastic way to keep your reader or watcher or audience engaged. It's a fantastic way to keep it deeply relatable, because that's just life. Experiencing all these emotions every single day. The craft of making it this experience enjoyable to a mass amount of people is an art form, to make something that is so deeply relatable that everyone can connect to it, even though they are not experiencing the same thing the character is experiencing. It doesn't have to be a one-to-one experience. People recognize sadness. People recognize tragedy. And for everyone to get it, it's an art form.
That's also why I think I'm very fascinated by it. Not in a sort of depressing way, but in a way of like, especially with theater or with live, if we I guess getting back to the little live play, like I feel like it's so rare for people to respond to the same things. Even if it's the greatest show you've ever watched, like you're gonna hit different beats because you recognize different stuff, or you have different people in your life that resemble stuff, or you just love a certain theme more than other stuff, or you work differently than other people. Like people are so complex and layered and different from each other, right? So how do you, what you were just saying, like pushing the buttons or like fine tuning such a delicate kind of instrument of a play or of a book or of anything to still get an overall same response to it is super hard. Like that's impossible. Maybe you don't even want it, right? Because of course it's nice if people have such a different experience with it, but you're still going for a certain direction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to sort of filter out or to be able to reach that level of intensity, because that's, I guess, at the end of the day, kind of what we're talking about, right? Like the relatability and the intensity of feeling something in a sort of safe space, which in my opinion is a lot of what art does to people in the best way. Like it's a sort of place to go to the extremes without having consequences or without having like real world repercussions of it. But to be able to provide that for so many is very cool and very hard and interesting. And it's like sculpting, right? Like how do you even do that? How do you pull the triggers of 100 people every day? That's crazy. Yeah.
And we discussed it at the top, just as a side note, it won't resound the same for everybody. That's just the reality, right? Like A Little Life had many detractors, many haters that just didn't like the story.
Yeah, it's true.
There's criticism that it wasn't an enjoyable experience, but there's no one who claims that the story wasn't deeply tragic. Right?
No, that's true. Yeah.
We're not saying the mastery of sadness is a broad appeal. The mastery of sadness is evoking the emotion where you want it to be.
Yes, I agree. I also was curious on if you have any, because you are a dungeon master and you do a bunch of games, and in a way are very much the crafter of story in a live setting as well in this way, right? Famously what D&D is. I'm curious if you have specific tools or a sort of go-to thing that you do to hit certain narrative beats like that, because you want to sort of evoke an intensity or you want to go a certain place, despite however people respond to it. That's of course out of your hands, but I'm curious if there's like a specific way that you do it, or is it always different depending on the situation? Do you prep it a lot? Is it an acting thing? Like, talk to me about it.
Yeah, yes. In the current story I'm running for my friends, the intent is that it's a deeply gothic tragic tale.
Yeah. Good setup, I think, for sadness.
We've spoken at length about Tangled Blessings.
Yeah,
and
great game.
Part of the process of running this for multiple people, it's like, how do I invoke feelings of sadness? How do I get people to the point where they understand the premise of the setting, which is meant to be this tragic tale? Like, it's kind of been, by genre, written in stone that this story will be a tragedy. My responsibility is to figure out how to get there.
Sure, yeah.
My players have given me their backstories, what they value, what they enjoy, what they want to talk about, like the themes and topics of their history. And my job is to take that and be like, all right, what will they like? And how can I steal that away from them? Like, that's just kind of the very base foundational premise. It's like, how do I give things that they love and are attached to? And how can I have them reckon with the feeling of loss when those things are taken away?
Right.
The easiest way I've done it in my stories is to make characters that they enjoy, that really tap into what they like and give them this kind of beacon of light in this very dark space, this very dark setting. I've provided them with characters that are jovial, that remind them of home, things like that. Like kind of things that individually inspire them. They've all kind of attached to very specific, we call them non-player characters, but side characters, basically. Characters they're not playing. So when I had one disappear, it became, they got so mad at me.
Yeah, I understand.
There was a fury that they're like, no, you didn't just do that.
How dare you?
What do you mean we don't remember who he is? What do you mean? It's just,
you
he's just a
even
name
wiped
on a
their
page.
whole memory? Like, what's happening
wiped
here?
him from existence.
That's like next level disappearing. Okay.
It's like, what do you mean? It's only his name on a piece of paper and no one else remembers who he could possibly be.
Wow.
Like, So it's a fury and then a reckoning with that loss, and it inspires this change in characters. They have to understand what this loss means to them, and it's just the first building block of inspiring sadness is to give people something to attach themselves to, something to relate to and love. That's and then force them to reckon with its disappearance.
Great advice. I think that counts for a lot of places. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the only thing. Obviously, that's not the only tool, but that's one of the first things in the DM toolkit is to just understand your players will love what you do, and you can use that.
Use it against them.
Use it against them.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's what I'd offer.
No, but that does make a lot of sense because it's very applicable to almost everything. And it's also in general how just storytelling works, right? Like if you're attached to something, it means you're doing it right. Because it means people start caring about the characters or the world or the whatever that it is that they're engaging with, I guess.
Yep.
I also wanted to, we've been going for a bit. Yeah, like a final note on this. Okay. I think there's also a certain saying, I don't know if it's like a general thing in acting, but I feel like I've talked about this with multiple like acting/theater friends by now, so I feel like it's kind of a standard thing or something. I don't know.
Okay.
There's this idea. Okay, let me clarify.
I'm here with you.
Yeah, there's this idea where it's an interesting sort of parallel to, for instance, people seeing, let's say, crying on camera, right? It's kind of like a top tier thing. Like if you can cry on cue, it means that you've reached like 100% of acting skills, right? That's kind of what many people are trying to aspire to or trying to figure out, stuff like that. It's a very literal example of like trying to reach sadness acting, right?
Sure.
One of my previous show directors who was directing the show at that time was sort of talking about the idea of it's not necessarily the literal crying that will get you as the audience like choked up, but it's about seeing the not crying. Like someone trying really hard not to cry is actually worse to experience than someone crying on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And that idea sort of always stuck with me because I think it's super fascinating and very true. Because if you're able to put an emotion, not even in the case of theater, in you as the performer, you as the character, not having that emotion, but sort of putting it in the audience, like trying to make the audience feel the emotion rather than the character, is a very interesting mind shift that I didn't have before. Before I was thinking mostly, if I want to portray a character perfectly, like the sadness in this case of this character perfectly, I need to go all the way there. But it's not necessarily true for everything. And sometimes it's even better to not go there or to stay in the middle part of sort of getting to that emotion because it will communicate the road better, if that makes sense, like the reach of it. Course. You know what I mean? Like if you linger longer in the part that hurts the most, like the trying to either acknowledge or trying to not go there or trying to not get angry or that stuff, it's going to be rougher to someone experiencing it because it feels more painful, it feels more tricky, you feel like there's more strain to the trying of it. And I think that's just a great interesting idea that I wanted to put out there finally, as I think a little bit of the end cap of this.
No, I mean, it's deeply relatable trying to hold it together.
Yeah. Actually, if you put it like that.
There is this, like, very briefly, there is a sort of catharsis to finally cry, like when the crying happens, it's like the tension is released. You're crying.
You're done. Yeah.
It's just a culmination of your sadness. So the build up to that moment is almost like a climax to the story. Like, wait, will it happen? Won't it happen? Yeah. And then when you cry, it's the exposition. It's done. Totally get it.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of putting that. And I guess that's where we'll leave the topic for today. There's a lot to talk about, but yeah, we also had the other episode, of course, so I didn't want to go too much into the difference between the two because I feel like we talked about it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I've been thinking about it a lot, specifically in acting, and it's so hard to do, right? If you can really fine tune the minimalism of it and then still reach a point of like extremity in terms of emotion, it's the most satisfying thing ever. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to be able to reach it in storytelling because it's pretty hard and it's so impactful. Yeah, so that's all I got.
Okay, great topic.
Yeah,
thank you.
I was like, are we going to be able, are we ready for a sad episode? But at least we're talking about it. We're not sad ourselves. Thank God.
Sure.
Which illustrates the point. Anyway, as we do with every episode, I'm rounding this up. We end the episode with a little prompt, which means a little exercise, a little stretching of the improv muscles. For this one, I will give you the prompt, as I said before.
Yep.
I guess inspired by a scene that I think illustrates sort of the good kind of sadness very well that I saw recently in the like videotaped production of Cabaret. There's a scene in there that just a little backstory of this.
Aside here, yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene in there where two characters have sort of a talk about the future. They want to get married, but it's basically a tale of like the Second World War, and one of them is Jewish, and they're sort of in Berlin just prior to when things go down real bad, and they're in the shop of the main character, and they're like dusting or like doing shop things. I'm not sure. He's cleaning the floor or something.
Shop things,
famously. You know. I've worked in a shop. I should have known, but I don't. They're just fidgeting around, having this conversation, and they're really not talking about what it is about. You know, like they're discussing, but they're not really touching the topic. So it's very evasion. Like you feel the subtext of it. And at some point in the scene, a brick gets thrown through his shop window. And it's a shocker, you know? And then they still don't talk about it, but the whole subtext is changed. It's a very interesting scene because of this. And I wanted to go a little bit there, maybe. It inspired at least the following prompt, which is this one. I would love for you to have a little scene. Can either be just a scene with the two of us, or if you want a monologue, also go ahead.
Okay.
Where you start and end with the same sentence, but the subtext is wildly different. And I was thinking either if it's easier to think of one sentence yourself, feel free. Otherwise, you can use maybe something like, we're going to work this out, or
we're going to work this out.
Something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now I got to think on this.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
We're going to magic away all of the thinking time through the
As
magic
we always
of editing.
do. Yeah.
But I'm going to sit on this for a little bit.
Please go ahead.
This is good. This is a good prompt.
I'm glad.
This seems like, and then kind of tapping into like my own life experiences, like the stressful night before a wedding.
Oh,
I've been involved in wedding planning as I've been getting older, and all my friends are getting married.
Yeah.
And it's just like when something bad happens right before the wedding, it's like times 10. It's like actually this wouldn't have been a problem a week ago, but tonight it's a problem.
Now a life changing.
Yeah. I remember when my friend almost lost the rings like 3 hours before the wedding.
Yeah,
and we were freaking out.
I mean, you probably should freak out about that. That's wild. Holy hell.
We were thinking about like replacement rings anywhere we can grab like fake rings just for the night. Yeah. Okay, let's try to get into this. For a scenario, what if we were not the two people being wed?
Okay.
But best man and
the helping hands.
maid of honor. Yeah.
Sure,
people who usually have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for this thing.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And I think we can kind of, I don't want to not improv this too much, but I do want to try to get us on the same page.
Yeah, sure. I will just follow wherever you're going as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of history in our collaboration, whether it be like an actual relationship or whether it be just projects we've worked on in the past. I think that would be like a good
we're not strangers to each other.
Yeah, we know each other's tendencies.
Makes
kind
sense,
of situation. Do I want to play a deeply clumsy individual? Is this where this is starting? I can fix this. Okay. So the line I've chosen to go with is, I can fix this.
Yes. Great.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be such a mess. I could tell. I can
It's part of improv. It's part of the game.
It's part of improv.
It'll be
fine. My gosh, this is one of those moments where I'm like, I wish I took a class or something. Like even kick this off.
Yeah,
you know,
I've felt that before. Yeah,
those thoughts. Okay, this scene starts off with a crash. Something breaks on the floor with a shatter.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah, the physical crash. I guess the first thing I'm supposed to say is I can fix this. Like, but the crash comes first. Room goes silent. The room goes silent. And I just very quietly say, I can fix this. Okay, nobody panic. I got this. We had another one of those, right?
Oh God. What did you do? What happened?
Okay, so I was just moving things out of the van. I was getting the whole room set up, and I kind of just grabbed a little too much. You know, I kind of overestimated how much I could lift, and there was a, I don't know really where it's from, but there's this like blue and white vase that I was bringing in, and it just kind of, you know, the sidewalk was taller than I thought it'd be, but this is fine, right? I could.
Yeah, so that one was like a really rare one. I think it came from her family. Like it was like an heirloom kind of thing. Oh,
okay,
God, this is bad.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
Okay. Okay. No,
listen. Jenny's not gonna know it's missing. It's just a vase.
How is she? How?
There's so much going on. You know, brides are so caught up in the moment, day of. There's no way she'd notice a piece of furniture that we're just going to be placed in the corner, right? Like it was just going to be somewhere on the side.
I mean, I think this is one of those things that it was like from her mom, so that her mom was still here, and then it was like a representative kind of like, I don't know where she wanted it, but like it's really important. I think it's really important, and I don't think we can just like change it up because it's not going to be like the same thing. I don't even know if there's a second one out there in the world. I don't know. Maybe was it like a custom piece? Do you know? Do you know anything about this?
I wasn't the one who packed the van. I thought your party packed the van. The bridal party was the one in charge of bringing everything from her house. Yeah.
Did it go wrong in packing? Did you just stumble? Why is it broken? Why did you break it?
Why is it broken? You can't just ask me why is it broken. It happened. We're dealing with it, okay?
God, okay. No, we can. Okay, so we gotta take at least all these freaking shards out of the way. Like this is a hazard.
Yeah, let me get a dustpan.
Oh God. Okay, so what's the plan? Because it's got to be here tomorrow at least, or we gotta fake it or whatever.
Listen, I could go to the hardware store tomorrow morning and I could buy something that's really close. I mean, maybe we could put it behind a curtain.
I mean, you know, Jenny, you know how she is. She's going to freak, you know? She's going to freak. Have you never seen like one of her fits before? Like it's real bad. I know.
I've been in the room before.
I've been doing like the wedding dress shopping and it's not good. I'm glad she picked something because she had a moment, let's say.
Is there any way we could just, I don't know, blame this on someone else? Like, I really don't want to have to deal with the backlash, and she's going to be so mad.
I mean, she's going to be mad regardless. I think she's going to be mad regardless.
Okay, so...
I mean, you could.
I don't think...
Like, I won't out you or something, but... Oh, man.
Listen, I feel like I've been bending over backwards for this wedding. Okay, I feel like I haven't slept for like 5 nights in a row.
Yeah, I mean,
just
they
driving
have
things back and forth.
Yeah, when I signed up for this, I thought it was going to be like a cute, like beachy thing, and then it turned into like a whole like coastline of of plants. I have to agree with you on that, but I mean, I love this freaking girl, so I will do anything that you're gonna ask me. But yeah, God, what do we do? Oh my God, are you crying? Oh God, don't cry about a face.
No, don't.
Oh, that's gonna make it way worse.
No, this is fine. We could. Okay,
you're good. You're gonna be fine. Oh my God.
Listen, I'll talk it out with Brad. I'm sure he has some sort of backup. He's been thinking about something else this whole time, and I've been really trying to kind of coach him through like this emotional thing.
Wait, what do you mean?
I don't know. He's starting to get cold feet. And listen, don't
what?
Don't tell Jenny. Don't tell Jenny.
What do you mean? Like, okay, so he's nervous. He's nervous. People get nervous for weddings. People get nervous.
Weddings. Yes, exactly. It's not something we have to worry about. It's just that he's been talking about it for months, and it's just kind of something that
He's been talking about it for months.
Okay.
You mean he's nervous for months? That's not usual. That's not usual.
You're getting intense. Please. We can't deal with that while other people are going to be mad. Okay. This isn't a problem.
Oh no.
Okay.
Are you serious about this? You're serious
about this. This is a real thing.
What did he say? Is he going to go through with it at least?
Well, of course he's going to go through with it. They've put thousands of dollars into this wedding. There's such a ridiculous amount of expenditure going on here.
Yeah, but
I look at the menu.
Oh my
look at the menu. Look at the lighting.
Yeah, I've seen the menu. I've packed the freaking crabs. I've packed all the lobsters and everything.
Okay. I just can't let them have a reason for calling this whole thing off. It's our job to keep them intact, right?
That's making things way more complicated now.
So I didn't want to tell you about it. I just didn't want to tell anybody about it. But this is kind of a big deal.
It's kind of
what you're telling. According to you, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. She shouldn't get married with someone who doesn't want to marry her. That's not how that works. Even if it's a freaking day before it's a dumb timing, I'll give them that. Yeah.
Are you telling me to tell them to call this whole thing off because a vase broke on the floor?
No. If Brad doesn't want to do it, he shouldn't do it. Because they're all going to be miserable. Like, that's how that works. You can't build it on the fact you spend a shit ton of money. It's true. And it sucks.
I don't know. Brad's told me that this is the best thing that's ever happened to him. He's been saying that for years, but suddenly towards the very end of this, he's just like, I don't know if I can go through with it. So I don't know if he'll be better off in this marriage or without it. Okay?
Did they at least talk to each other about it? No, they didn't.
Of course not. Of course not. You know them. Listen, no matter what, you can't tell anyone about this, okay? No matter what.
I mean,
tomorrow has to go off without a hitch.
And then what? What's the picture here?
I don't know. It's not my wedding. It's not your wedding. It's not anyone's. This is someone else's life, and we've been forced to hold the reins. Okay?
Okay.
I'll make sure that Brad's in the right mind space for tomorrow. Please make sure Jenny doesn't break down or something. All I can ask for you is that you do the best you can for me, I guess. I know this mess is my mess, but it's going to quickly become everyone's mess.
I mean, I will. It's the job, but man, that's nerve-wracking. But if that's what you want to do,
I just need to know I can trust you on this.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Just trust me. I can fix this.
Ooh.
End scene.
Complications.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I didn't know where we were going with that. you know, halfway through, I was like, I don't even know your name. I
didn't know my name.
I wanted to say something like, I don't know, Maria. I don't know. Yeah.
You know, it's Jenny and Braz are more important. That's how the hierarchy works in this kind of stuff.
We're nameless characters. What a great motif.
Great motif.
We're not even the important ones in the story.
No one can blame us because we don't have names.
Yeah. Oh, crazy.
Yeah, man, complicated. I'm glad I didn't go to this kind of wedding because, dang, maybe went to one wedding in my life. And
best man is so stressful. I've never been.
Were you best man before? No.
I've been one of the groomsmen like a couple of times, but never best man. That's so stressful.
Thank God. Don't break vases. No,
don't be a best man.
Don't be best man.
Don't
you heard
be a
it here
man.
first.
Anyway, that's what you're taking away from today. Don't be a best man.
If anything, it's the best advice we got today.
Anyway, wrap us up.
We should leave it there. Thank you all so much for listening to another crazy ramble of your favorite people in the world, me and Dante. Hey, if you want to ramble along with us, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a Gmail, which is yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. There's this one thing we still need to discuss, maybe in the next episode. I feel like we've
one more thing
touched upon it a lot of times now, but there's this river. I think it's your river.
It is.
That's pretty wrong.
It is your river, and it is pretty wrong.
Pretty wrong. Yeah, we didn't really want to say it, but it's pretty wrong. Sorry about it. So check in later, maybe, to see if you'll ever fix it.
All right. See you next time. Goodbye. Bye. I'm saying bye. So it's bye. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any thoughts for topics, prompts, or if you just want to share your thoughts, you can reach us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. That's yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Big thank you goes to Martin Skelligans for our intro and outro music. And most importantly, thank you for listening. We hope to catch you at our next episode. Have a good one.